Hello friends, can you imagine this Earth on which we humans have been born? This Earth which is home to innumerable species of living beings. This very Earth was a ball of boiling lava 4 billion years ago. A ball with no sign of life. This begs the obvious question. How did this ball of lava transform into the Earth we live in today? Where did water come from? How was the moon formed? These are all connected to the birth of our sun and solar system. In this video, let's understand these in depth. About 4.6 billion years ago, that is 4,600,000,000 years ago, that our solar system did not exist. Instead, there was only darkness, deep, quiet, and empty space. In this space was a cloud full of dust and gas. This cloud is now known as the solar nebula. It contained various gases. Of them, hydrogen and helium were the most abundant. This cloud was peacefully traveling through the darkness of space for millions of years. Then suddenly one day, there was a big explosion. And no, I don't mean the Big Bang. I am talking about the supernova. This explosion wasn't caused inside the cloud. It took place somewhere close to it. A dying star exploded near it. This kind of explosion is called a supernova, and it often happens to those stars which reach the end of their life. The shock waves of this explosion reached our solar nebula and caused gravitational instability. In some areas of this cloud, the gas and dust began compressing. Gradually, this entire nebula starts collapsing inward, and the gas and dust start revolving around it. The nebula looked like a rotating disk at this point. This flat rotating disk is called the protoplanetary disk. Proto means before. The disk that existed before the planets were formed. As shown in the animation on the screen, this was what the disk looked like. Since this disk was flat, this helps us understand why is our solar system flat. I talked about this in the Voyager video. When the planets of our solar system orbit around the sun, they are almost on the same plane. The orbits of the planets aren't significantly higher or lower than the others. Now, at the center of this protoplanetary disk, the pressure and temperature kept on increasing, and it gave birth to a protostar. Protostar means the same thing, basically. The thing which existed before the star was formed. Gradually, the contents of the nebula were pulled towards the center due to increasing temperature and pressure. And at one point in time, the center became so concentrated that nuclear fusion reaction started. Hydrogen's fusion reaction. It takes place at around 15 million degrees Celsius. In this reaction, hydrogen turns into helium. Because of this fusion reaction, our sun was born. This reaction is still taking place on the sun and is the source of sunshine, heat, and light on Earth. The details of the actual reaction is quite complex, but broadly speaking, hydrogen is being converted into helium. Back then, 4.6 billion years ago, most of the gas and dust in our solar nebula was converging into the sun. This is why even today, the sun makes up about 99.8% of the total mass of our solar system, and the remaining 0.2% didn't go unused. That 0.2% accounts for 8 planets, hundreds of moons, thousands of comets, and millions of asteroids in our solar system. But the question is, how did these planets start forming? That's so interesting. Small dust particles in the rotating protoplanetary disk started colliding with and sticking to each other. This happened due to static or chemical bonding forces, and initially, they formed into small clusters. Millions of years later, the clusters started getting bigger when more dust particles collided with them. Gradually, some of them got so big that their diameter ranged from 1,000 meters to a few kilometers. These bodies are called planetesimals, a tiny version of planets. When gravity pulled these planetesimals together and their mass or size became as big as our moons, they were called protoplanets. The process of these dust particles accumulating together is known as accretion. Look at how accretion is defined in astronomy. The coming together and cohesion of matter under the influence of gravitation to form larger bodies. The accumulation of materials leads to the formation of larger bodies. This process of accretion was presented to the world by a Soviet Union astronomer, Viktor Safronov, in 1969. But back then, no one took him seriously. It was only in 1984 that Safronov's work was being studied and his ideas were being adopted by the scientific community. Today, scientists have observed this process of accretion